Phil, we got a few things we're going to talk about today. We have Strike, a Kickstarter board game about the Kickstarter unionizing efforts. And that's still going on right now, 14 days left. We're talking about Essen and a game that each of us are excited about. And then we'll talk about 3 board games, Root, Skulk Hollow, and Just One, because they're games we both played and both enjoy. And then we've had questions from our users on our forum that we'll address. How does that sound, Phil?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let's get right to it.
Okay, so Strike, if you don't know what Strike is, first, some history. Kickstarter, and the reason we care about Kickstarter in board games is because tons of board games come through Kickstarter. And Kickstarter cares about board gamers because $600 million of Kickstarter's revenue came through board games since they launched. So tons of board games, tons of Kickstarters. Now, there's allegedly Kickstarter fired 2 or 3 employees who were trying to start a union. And that's a no-no. You're not supposed to fire union-started people. And so there was a big uproar in the board gaming community because they wanted to support those who were trying to create a union. And there was then a few weeks of petitions signed by influencers. And then we found, you sent me this link.
Yeah.
About Strike, the game of worker rebellion. That's the name of it. It's created by this group called the Tessa Collective, who makes a bunch of different board games. They've made 4 others, I think. And they make games to create a better world. So in the games themselves, you're creating a better world. But they're also trying to create a better world with their games in the real life. And so some of their old titles are Rise Up, the game of people and power. They got Coopoly, and they've got Space Cats, Fight Fascism. So they got all sorts of fun games. But this one, Strike, is about the Kickstarter unionizing effort. It's on Kickstarter right now, getting funded. It's at, what do you have here, 33,000?
Yeah, at least that's the amount that it was at yesterday when I checked.
Mm-hmm.
So 33 out of 22. So
Yeah.
not bad.
So I think it's a worker placement game. You're trying to, I forget everything. But it seems like an actually designed game with some good artwork and things.
Yeah. I mean, at first when I saw the page, I think the first thing that came to my mind was, are they being opportunistic? Just trying to make use of this drama that's going on with Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And then trying to get a cash grab of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I looked into it, I could see that they do actually have a history of making games to create a better world, like their motto. So.
Yeah. It does make me feel better that they've had other successful games before.
Yeah.
If this was the first one, I would definitely agree.
Yeah.
Cash grab.
And even and something that stood out to me with some of their past campaigns as well as this one was that they always emphasize at the end, related to shipping and manufacturing, that they ensure ethical and sustainable production, which I had no idea what that means. And so it means that...
Like manufacturing or something?
Yeah, so they're
Okay.
working with companies that are actually owned by the workers and for the people.
Like the workers are treated well, given a
Right.
fair salary, all that stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So...
That's cool. Tessa Collective, doing good work. Seems like they have designers out there ready for anything that comes up in the world that needs a board game to help fight the power.
Yeah. And I've been keeping up with Twitter almost every day with Kickstarter and Kickstarter United, the group that's behind the unionization effort.
Okay.
Because, I'm just curious when it's going to happen or if something will happen. Because on Kickstarter, every one of their tweets, there's a bunch of comments where people are just saying, hey, well, when are you going to recognize a union? So every
really?
one of their tweets about whatever Kickstarter that they're trying to promote, it has those comments underneath it.
Really? I didn't know that it was getting that much of a backlash, every single tweet they have.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Still a hot topic, I guess.
Yep.
Cool. You want to move on to Essen?
Sure.
Tell me about what you think about Essen, what your favorite game is, or game you're looking forward to.
Well, first, I wish I could be there. Because it seems like a lot of fun. So many people are talking about it. So it just makes me want to go. And a game that I've been looking out for personally is Cooper Island.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone else in our forum mentioned it too.
Pull it up. I want to see it too.
I'm going to pull up your SN post from a few weeks ago.
Pull up the game. I want to see the game, Cooper Island.
Okay.
So what is this game about?
So the players are essentially voyagers. They're on a journey to this new island, far away from home, and now they find themselves at this island where they need to colonize it. So they're trying to claim the land by placing these landscape tiles, and each of these landscape tiles grant you some sort of resource.
So I'm looking at this giant board. It looks like a big plus sign. Like, is that set up like that, or are those hexes pushed into this to make it look like this?
I think I do see some, spacing or indents. So I would think that it's some sort of a modular board that you can modify, but at the same time, I'm not sure. Yeah. But you're placing those landscape tiles on, all over the island to gain those resources and then make buildings, structures that will give you certain abilities. And, as always, I'm attracted to good-looking games, and this is a good-looking game too.
It does look good. It looks big. If we're looking at Board Game Geek, they give it a weight of 4, you said? Oh, yeah, 4. So early playing seems like a heavier game. It says it's worker placement. Looks very cool. It looks like you're trying to build territories. Like, are these 4 different players on these 4 different islands, I wonder?
That's what I was wondering. But I was also wondering, what kind of interaction will there be between the players? Or is it almost completely separate? I couldn't tell.
It looks like you're trying to build colonies separate from each other. Maybe there's some invading, maybe because there's water in between around different like peninsula-looking things. It's like I described. It's like a plus sign, and so each end of the plus has an island-looking thing attached to a center-looking, almost like a tomb or temple. Maybe that's like the main island.
I could see that.
Yeah.
So that's the one that I've been looking out for.
So is it primarily because of the art, or is it the gameplay that interests you as well?
No, it's primarily the gameplay. It looks good, so that attracts me to it initially.
Yeah.
But I've been curious about getting into games that have to do with exploration.
Yeah.
So that's what made me curious, and also the fact that it has a weight that's not yet something that I've really gone to before or tried. 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
So that too. I see it as a challenge.
Yeah. Heavier weight games, it depends, because it could be like heavy to learn, very difficult, and teaching like War of the Ring, there's a ton of rules. But like in actual gameplay, like even Pipeline's like 3.8, I think. But gameplay is just worker placement, simple. You just have to know what everything is, so your choices are pretty grand, but when you're actually doing things, it's just easier.
Yeah.
This could be a complex game, though. Looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So one game that I saw from Calvin's article was this game called Geometric Art. And really the only reason I'm excited about it is because of one photo he took. You're essentially given markers, and it feels like any party game where you're judging the art of what other people are doing. But what you're drawing on looks like you're drawing on a gigantic canvas. It's like a photograph of people at a museum. And the canvas that they're looking at, these little observers, is what you're drawing on. So at the end of your turn, it looks like people are admiring your piece of art in some capacity. It looks hilarious. It looks amazing.
There you go.
Yeah. So it looks like a roll and write style game. There's some dice with some different, like a triangle, a line, a square. I'm sure you roll it and try and draw it and create some art.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh. It made me smile. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think simple games like this are something to be excited about.
Yeah. I was planning on mentioning this game too, because I think it'll be a hit with my family. And I tend to do well with drawing games.
That makes sense.
Drawer.
You're an artist, yeah.
But a lot of those games I do well mostly because, I draw well, but also because usually they don't put too much limitation on the drawer. It usually has to do with time limitation to draw something really fast. So I'm kind of looking forward to, the dice where it seems to be limiting you in terms of the kinds of shapes that you can use to describe an object.
Interesting.
So that'll be a big handicap for anyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
Anything else about Essen you want to talk about before we move on? Besides wanting to go.
not that I can think of. I mean, but I do think that, it was really nice to have Calvin give us the kind of like the live update of what's going on there. So I'm hoping that next year, I don't know, one of us or Calvin or someone could.
Maybe we
go
can
there.
all go together. I think that would be great. It's definitely big enough where I think having all three of us trying to cover different games and different events would be worthy.
Yeah.
So great to have Calvin there. He wrote 4 blog posts on board game prices. So if you want to see all the photos from what he did there, you can go. There'll be a link in the description of the video and the podcast as well. But let's talk about some games. So 3 games we want to talk about today are Root, Skulk Hollow, and Just One. And we can start with Root. It was actually one of the first real games I played as a board gamer, or like early on that's on the heavier side compared. And at this point, it has such a special place in my heart because the art was something I wasn't excited about at first. It was a little too unique for me, but it's so iconic and it's grown heavily, and I really love it now. And it just feels like so satirical because it's this game of war and fighting and engine building, but it's these fun little animals that are here together. And if you haven't played Root, you definitely should. If you're looking for a game that's fun, Root is a great game to choose. But the whole premise of this game is you have 2 to 4 players and you're on this giant map where there's different areas to control, and it's asymmetrical. So as the cats, you're trying to build buildings, either a sawmill, a resource engine factory thing. You're trying to recruit more people, or you're trying to get more resources. And that's how you're primarily getting points, is you're building those things. As the birds, you're trying to use your cards to take more and more actions over the course of the game, and it builds up. As the Woodland Alliance, you're trying to not fight as much, but get into key positions to fight really quickly, get a lot of points. And then the Vagabond, you're this rogue wandering around the forest, because this is a giant forest with a bunch of different places to go. And so you're all trying to fight each other. That's the main mechanic that's shared between everyone, but also accomplish your own goal. And what I like about the game is it feels really balanced and very thoughtful in its design. Cole Worley makes great games. And it also feels like I can come back, play the same faction and have a new experience, or play an entirely different faction and get a whole new experience. Whether I do one or the other, I feel like it's going to be a fun game because other people that are playing will play something else or have a different strategy. It's really expandable. They've got, I think, 3 different expansions at this point and a lot of fan ones. 2 or 3. Maybe it's at 2. Feels like 100. Overall, I think every time I've played, I've enjoyed it. The only thing that's hard but easier at this point is the teaching. It takes a while to teach since every faction is unique. So that's the only hurdle to get over. Everyone needs to be prepared to learn the game when they come. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, since you mentioned about rule explaining, I think that's one of the most common complaints that people have. It tends to be hit or miss with a lot of the groups, mostly because of the rule explaining. And so I think I remember you explaining it, and I think you did a great job. It's just like I think we had a couple of the guys who are really tired after a day of work.
Yeah.
And just spacing out, but it worked. But as for the game, I think after playing Root, I think that's a game that really made me somewhat of a fan of Leader Games now.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why whenever Leader Games comes out with new games, we've been talking about Oath a lot.
Yeah.
And so I just instantly feel an attraction just because of Root. Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, it's one of my favorite games. I mentioned it plenty of times in the forum. And Scott has mentioned it plenty of times too. Yeah.
It's funny, when I opened it today, because I just did a review on it, and that'll be going up later this week, or it might be up by the time the podcast is live. I just didn't realize how simple all the components were. There's just the meeples for each faction, the little tokens that each has, the cards, the dice, and the board. And it's so simple. It fits into a small box, but it feels like this huge game.
That's true.
It's amazing how much it can feel like a big game but fit into a small package, have all this complexity but really easy to understand once you know how to play. I think it's just a mastery of design, of art, of iconography, of things just working together well. So I really like Root.
So with Root, I can't remember. I think it's probably Scott since he likes the game. Which faction is your favorite, and why?
Oh, my favorite faction. I'm not sure. I kind of like the Marquise de Cat because you're. It feels like everyone's against you because you have the most board presence to start with, and I kind of like being the center of attention. So building buildings and trying to convince people to attack each other is fun for me. I played the birds, and it's fun to do engine building and a fun puzzle to solve to make sure you can always complete what you're trying to do. And the vagabond's interesting. The woodland, they're all interesting, but I think the cat's my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
My favorite is the Woodland Alliance. Yeah.
Why?
I think it goes with my personality. I don't stand out all that much with any kind of whenever we get together in a group, or my personality isn't very outspoken and talking a lot. I like to have a small presence at times, but hiding like a big potential that I can just like bring up on someone.
Yeah.
So when I play as a Woodland Alliance, I like that I can pretend like I'm very weak and I can't do anything and get people off guard, while they just focus on each other and start fighting.
Yeah.
And while in the background, I'm just scheming away, and then just like waiting for that turn to come when I can just jump on someone. And my heart's like
Pounding ready, hoping it'll turn out well.
So, yeah.
We should play again.
Yeah, we should.
Let's skip Skulk. Let's end with Skulk Hollow.
Okay.
And talk about Just One. Do you want to describe Just One?
Yeah, it is a simple game where Just One is where you have. Let's see. I'm not very good at this type of thing, but it's a family game. Let's start with that, and it's similar to Codenames. Trent actually made a video on that idea also, where Just One is a family game where you're playing together as a team, and the whole goal is that you're trying to guess these words together as a group while giving hints to one another.
Just one word.
Yeah, just one word. And so, for example, if it's Trent's turn, then he'll have a card facing the rest of the team, and the card will have, is it 4 or 5 words to them?
5 words.
In 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then Trent will choose one of those numbers, and that number will match with one of the words. For instance, if you say 2, and that word is chocolate. And then, in that case, then the rest of the group, the rest of the team, now has to come up with unique clues, a clue word, for us to help Trent to guess that word.
Also just one word.
Yes, just one word, and it has to be unique.
Yeah.
Where if it overlaps within any of the group's hints, then that hint just gets tossed out.
And you're checking with each other what the clues are before showing me. And if they match, you erase, and I don't get to see it.
Yes. So there's a little bit of a push and pull of, okay, how obvious of a clue should I give?
Yeah.
How abstract should I go? So that you don't end up overlapping the clues as much. Like, for instance, it's apple. Then, some of the obvious clue words that could come to mind could be red, fruit. Computer? Yeah. Newton? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you're trying to make those guesses and trying to tell, okay, he'll obviously go for something very direct. So you're trying to outguess one another. So.
Yeah. I like this game, and I think it fits in with, I think having Just One and Codenames. I also have Decrypto. I think I have them in a similar category. Word games that you can play with a lot of people. They all feel like they're great games that can fit in a different game night with a different group or with the same group. And I like that Just One is cooperative but still feels competitive because it's based on a score of 0 to 13 points, how many guessed right. And so you can compete against your friend's best score. I think we've gotten 10 the best or something like that. And so 10 is the number we try to beat whenever I bring it to someone's group. And I like having the whiteboards, the little easel things that you're putting the cards on and drawing on. It just feels very interactive compared to the other games that I played. So that's why I like it a lot. It's so easy to teach too.
Yeah. I got it just for my family, so that my parents can have some practice with English words, because they don't get that much practice nowadays. So we played it. We had a blast. It's funny to me though, watching my family play games, because immediately I could see them start to cheat. Trying to give extra clues, by word, by talking.
Yeah. I think that happens a lot with all these kind of games, especially if it's cooperative. Like, whatever.
yeah. But it made it really fun.
Yeah. Just one great game. Definitely you should get it if you haven't, or play it if you haven't. It's worth it. So let's talk about Skulk Hollow. So we got this sent to us, and man, I've just fallen in love with this game. It's 1v1, and I think it's the only game in my collection that I have that's 1v1, besides the one that I made. Because even Magic the Gathering, you can play in a group. With Skulk Hollow, the whole premise, it's kind of like this video game called Shadow of Colossus. That's what it's compared to most of the time, where there is this massive monster that is one of the players. So I'm talking about the board game now, not Shadow.
Yeah.
It's also kind of like Shadow. But one of the players in Skulk Hollow is playing as a massive monster, and you can choose between 4. The basic one is this giant rock, earthy bear kind of guy. And the other player is playing as this band of foxen heroes. So you have like really small meeples compared to the massive 4-inch meeple that the bear has. And you are on this 3x3 grid, so really small play space to move around with your meeples. And that's not the only board you're playing with. There's also the monster board, which shows if it's Grak, the bear nature guy, it shows his whole artwork piece. It's the size of the game board as well. It's huge. And various body parts have health and little spaces for your fox meeples. And the whole point of the game is moving on this 3x3 grid, trying to approach the monster, or the monster trying to approach and attack you. If, as a fox, you get into this space with the meeple, you can then jump onto the monster board and leap around trying to hack away at the arms, at the legs, and the monster's throwing you off and stomping on the ground and attacking you. It's this wonderful, really well-designed strategy, tactical game. And the cards that you use to actually execute all these things have a top and bottom half, kind of like Gloomhaven, kind of like War of the Ring if you played either of those. And what's nice is at every point in the game, it feels like you have something you can do. Because even if every card you have in your hand doesn't work, you discard 1, draw 2, that's one of the actions. So you either have a lot of choices or can dig really quickly to get something that you're looking for if it's something specific. And it just feels like it's this wonderful matchup of when you're playing it, the actual mechanics of the game fade into the distance, and it just feels like you're a band of heroes fighting against a monster. You're a monster swinging away, flying, stomping, all this stuff, and that's what makes the game sing, I think. And just the fact that there's so much I haven't done yet. I can play as different leaders in the Foxen. We can play as different monsters. It feels so fun. And we played it yesterday morning.
Yeah.
What'd you do? How'd you do?
Yeah, I mean, it was right before I went to work. So
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I mean, I love the game. It was definitely a surprise. I think I would say that it's one of the best 2-player games I've ever played. And because I didn't know about Shadow of Colossus, so I actually thought of Link, or Legend of Zelda.
Oh yeah.
Because it tends to have a lot of boss battles where it has some weak links for the body parts that you need to attack.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was reminded of. And I think it's always a great sign for a game when it kind of pulls you in to become the character.
Yeah.
And so the whole time as Grak, this big guardian, I felt like I was being bullied by you. just trying to throw you off again and again and again as some of my abilities are getting locked from losing all the health.
Yeah.
I'm trying to desperately grab for the health, the healing cards and so on. So, yeah. So from my perspective, I could just relate to Grak and feeling like, okay, it's actually the Guardians that are peace-loving, just wanting to be left
see,
alone.
yes.
And these band of heroes come, calling themselves heroes, trying to, kill me.
I see. Yeah, what it felt like at first was just like this unwinnable battle against a Titan, because like I was creating my little heroes and adding to my recruits, and then I get hit with one blow and one of them dies instantly. I'm like, oh shoot, how am I going to fight this big thing? But over time, I learned, don't make a ton of people, just because they're fodder to be killed, and that's leading you to victory. So I just kept just a few, like 3, maybe 4, that are tactically sent in to hit vital points. And it was really fun to be able to discover that strategy throughout it and start making it a focused effort instead of just going crazy and running into failure.
I could definitely feel the health getting drained out of me slowly and slowly, like your hand was wrapped around my throat.
Yeah, near the end, it did feel a little bit unwinnable for you.
Yeah. I mean, I was 3 away, just 3 more units I had to kill, but it just felt so far.
Yeah.
By the end, and I think I could relate to the bosses within games, how they must feel being overwhelmed by the hero. Yeah. So.
Sure.
It was fun. And
now you can relate to Ganon and all the monsters you fought before. Cool. So those are the games that we've been playing recently and that we've been enjoying. So let's take some questions from users. Right. What do you got, Phil?
Well, this question was actually asked before.
If you want to ask a question, how do you do that, Phil?
So if you want to ask a question, I'll make a post every Tuesday, and you can post your questions there. I actually forgot the last one, but I'll make sure to remember it.
And that's going to be on the Board Game Atlas forum. So if you go there, you can answer the question, and we'll answer it for you on air. We'll get to everyone's questions, so just throw it out there, and we'll give it a shot. Yeah,
it's my favorite section.
All right.
So this question was asked before, but in case anyone missed it, if you could just kind of give a quick recap. So it's from James Reed 860. James, if you haven't already, I'd like to hear how BGA got started and the story behind it.
So Board Game Atlas got started because last year I was developing board games, and I developed 3, started launching them on Kickstarter, made about $65,000 in sales through that and through the Pledge Manager. And then I was making quite a bit of sales on the Kickstarter itself, but then when the Kickstarter was over, it went from 1,000 sales to 25. And I was so frustrated. So I was this software engineer for 10 years, and I was trying to figure out, what can I do to help market? Why don't I wait, or I'm waiting for art for my 4th game. Why don't I make a little board game search engine? So I threw together this search engine, got a bunch of traffic on Reddit after I just 2 weeks sent it out there, check out what I made. And it was such a big impact in how much people come and felt like it was useful that I started working on it more because I was still waiting on the art. It eventually became big enough where I felt like I should just focus on this, and the board games themselves can be something that I consider a hobby, creating and launching, because the margins are difficult and running a business is much harder when I'm not an expert in it. And software, I'm very good at. So it basically started because I was waiting for art and wanted a marketing opportunity, and then just shifted gears and have been doing it full time. So we had about 2 months of it in beta under the 5-color combo name. Then it got rebranded because I felt like the name was hard. And Board Game Atlas was born January 9th is when we launched, and got tons of people, almost 20,000 people who came the first day on Reddit that we launched, which is great. So just been growing it since then.
Yeah. And James, in case you missed it, I came into the picture starting March when Trent asked for some help on logos for our website, and also the default avatars that you start out with. And so that's how I got sucked in, and then I never left.
Yeah, we found out your superpower is not just art, but with marketing and with writing and all sorts of other things that have been really valuable for the website. So Phil became a co-founder at that point.
Still part-time, though.
Still part-time. You got a full-time job. I'm doing this full-time because I was lucky to have a bit of a savings account from my previous software job. And we're hoping to get you full time soon. See whenever that happens.
I'm sure it'll happen soon.
Yeah. All right. What's the next question?
Yeah, it's from Brian or Scurvy5. So, I think, yeah. So he says, when will you play Imperial Assault?
Scurvy5, when you send us Imperial Assault, we will play it that day. I'm sure that, let's take a look. Let's pull it up. I want to see Imperial Assault. Because
Sure.
I've seen images of it. I don't know what type of game it is, though. There's so many different Star Wars ones that all seem interesting. This one's very highly rated, it seems.
Yeah, let me pull up the images.
First, what type of game is it?
Type of game.
Is it 1v1, just collectible, living card game kind of game?
Let's see.
Dice rolling grid, modular board, role-playing, team-based, variable powers. All sorts of stuff in here.
By Jonathan Ying. I'm interviewing him soon.
I mean, it looks like a great game themed with Star Wars, fighting with minis. Get cards, get dice. A lot of great elements for something that I think would be fun.
I'm sure the story element will be there.
So, it's not that we don't want to play it, just we don't have a copy, so we haven't played it. And there's hundreds and thousands of other games that we're playing right now, so that's why we haven't gotten to it.
Yeah.
It looks lovely, though. I'd be happy to play it soon. What's the next question?
The next question. Star Wars Rebellion is the best game of all time. Discuss.
That's not true. Board Game Geek says Gloomhaven is the best game of all time, and I think I agree with that. It's wonderful. It's so fun. Gameplay is great. The campaign is awesome. The scenarios are all well designed. It's fun for 2 players, fun for more.
Well, we still haven't played it yet, so.
Well, yes, I haven't played Star Wars Rebellion. We should look that up as well. I don't know what that game's about either.
I'll search it.
I'm guessing Scurvy5, you're interested in Star Wars-based games.
I think so too.
It's a great IP, so it makes sense. I mean, I've seen people talk about this, seen screenshots. It's also extremely highly rated, so I can see why you would consider it the best.
Yeah.
Send us that too. Happy to play it. Would love to make a video on it.
All right, next one. Marshwiggle92. I haven't found out your real name yet, but I'm a little curious about your review process. How often do you generally need to play a game? Are you drawn to more classic fare new gamers may have missed, or are you drawn more to the hotness? What do you do with negative reviews?
So, do you think this is talking about like video reviews and things like that?
I think so. I say so. I mean, I think it's asking a little bit of your preferences or what you're drawn to. But I think one of the big questions is also the negative reviews.
So, I am a person drawn to the hotness. I've played a few classics like Dominion and Catan and Carcassonne and Pandemic, and those are fine games. Dominion's the only one that I actually enjoy playing still. And I think those are all worthy to play once at least. But I don't own any except for Dominion. Mm-hmm. I think the hype is a great thing to lean into because that's great for content, mostly. Yeah. And also it's fun to play the games that people are talking about a lot. I like talking about them and playing them and talking about them more, and putting it on video gives a great way to talk about games. The games I've been reviewing have been basically all the games I bought in the last 12 months. So that's why some of them seem newer, older. But mostly games coming out I'm going to be buying and reviewing and playing because I'm excited about them. Yeah. I got Tapestry coming way later than I was hoping. But I hadn't built a studio yet, so I didn't order it as early as possible. So I regret that. Got Wingspan, the European expansion coming. Got Paladins of the West. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Paladins of the West coming. Yeah. I got review for Black Angel that I just played for all sorts of games. So I'm all about the hotness. What do I do with negative reviews? Usually I just don't make videos. If I don't get excited about a game, I'm not going to play it. Or I will play it much later than all the games I am excited about. And I tend to focus on what I like about a game and give that information rather than tearing down games. And, for some people, games can be interesting to them because of the genre, because of the intellectual property, because of the theme or the mechanics. And I think there's something to like about most games, especially the ones that have all this hype around it. It's usually for a reason. So we'll have to see. I haven't played that many bad games, so I just haven't made that many reviews talking about them.
Yeah, and I think in general you cover a lot of bases when you do a review. So I think that gives enough of a hint, clue for the viewer to see, okay, this isn't for me, or oh, this is something completely for me. So
yeah.
Well, that was all the questions.
Well, what about you? When you're buying a game, what's your process? Like, when would you buy a game?
So I think I'm one of the rare exceptions, possibly. I don't know. Maybe there are lots of me out there. But a lot of my purchasing habits, the games that I go after are almost heavily determined by people around me, like my wife, Anna, or my parents who are living with us. So usually when I think about which games I want to get, I'm completely thinking about, okay, what kind of games can they handle? What kind of games would they like? And then I make my purchasing around that.
I guess you're also unique because you have me and I buy all the games.
Yeah. And
so
also
you can play all the games.
Yeah. And I was just mentioning that to someone else on the forum today too, that, I usually don't buy that many games, but I have you buying a lot of those games.
Yeah.
And also that recently I've been reaching out to a lot of the publishers to send us their games.
Yeah.
So.
Because our company's been paying for some. I buy a lot myself just to keep it at home. But, there's a lot of great games out there.
Skulk Hollow was one of the, great finds that we got from the publishers.
Yeah. So that was a great one. Cool. So, again, if you have questions that you have for us, you can log on to the Board Game Atlas forums and throw a question out on Tuesday as Phil posts that post, and we'll get to them on the podcast.
Sounds good.
Anything else you want to talk about on the way out?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll talk about more games, more news, and more questions next time. See ya.